Let's welcome Laurie. Thank you. Thank you, Laurie.
Yes, hello. A very flustered Laurie, I'm afraid. I usually am a lot cooler than this at the beginning. It's been thrown quite a lot. I can't see anybody there. I can see a list of names, and I see Mike Sadler's there, who I know. Hi, Mike. And maybe we'll say hello later on. I've been trying to get a picture on my mobile phone, but I can't do it. Anyway, Laurie Taylor here. I live in Totnes, and I've been on the case for proportional representation for more than 40 years. And a formative thing for me was in the late 70s, early 80s. I got hold of the Hansard Society Commission report 1976 on electoral reform, quite an august body of people on that commission, and it came down very firmly on the side of we must reform to proportional representation. In fact, they recommended the additional member system, the AMS system. So I thought, oh, well, that was jolly good, and but nothing ever happened after that because of the duopolistic nature of our politics, and it was swept under the carpet. I do actually have it as a hard copy and an online copy if anybody's interested. Anyway, so I'm here on behalf of Make Votes Matter, which is a cross-party organisation started in 2015 after that election, the 2015 general election. And Make Votes Matter, MVM, is a single issue campaign for the introduction of proportional representation to the House of Commons. Nothing else at all, and I quite admire the single party focus of it all. Proportional representation is basically that all votes, seats match votes, and all votes count equally. So you get 10% of the votes and you get 10% of the seats in the Commons. I believe very firmly that proportional representation, PR, is the single most important change that we can make to British politics. It's about our democracy, it's about better politics, about connectedness, and about a much healthier society in so many senses. It's not a panacea in itself, but it's a foot in the door that enables much better governance with outcomes based on fairness, equality, consensus, cooperation, and compromise. I'm going to talk for a bit about a few of the things that are wrong with our present system, and then I'll describe what difference PR would make, and then how we're going to win PR, with a bit of luck, in the next Parliament, and then how you can get involved, and then there'll be Q&A at the end. So what's wrong with FPTP, first past the post, our present system? I'm assuming you all know how it works, which is very simple. 650 constituencies, and each one elects one MP. One who gets the most votes goes to Parliament. It's very simple. But in fact, it's primitive, dysfunctional, and dangerous is what I came up with the other day. And I thought it was quite nice. I can unpack any of those if as and when we need to, maybe in the Q&A. Primitive, dysfunctional, and dangerous. And just a quick thought about the first past the post system. Well, there isn't a post to get past. It's the one who gets one more vote than the person who comes second. You don't have to get more than 50%. There is no winning post. And it's not a general election either. It's 650 specific elections which aren't really linked. There's no such thing as a general election under first past the post. And what do we get? We get confrontational, adversarial, short-sighted politics, mostly dominated by the right. In fact, since the war, it's been about 2/3 right and about 1/3 left. And since the Labour Party came into being 120 years or so ago, it's been 75% right and 25% left. And rather astonishingly, the Labour Party are the only socialist party in the world that supports a majoritarian, in other words, a system like we've got, first past the post. I think that's coming to an end, and I'll get onto that a bit later. And as we know, each lot get in and undo the other lot stuff. The red lot get in, they do red lot things, and then the blue lot get in and they do the blue lot things. Look at the states at the moment. The United States. There was two sessions of Obama on the left, who did lefty type things, and then I can't but not say too much here. Then Trump gets in and undoes a load of the Obama stuff. Trump got in, of course, with fewer votes than Hillary Clinton. That's because they have first past the post, and it's skewed by the Electoral College. And then out goes Trump, and then Biden gets in and starts undoing all the stuff that Trump did. And will a Republican get in next time and start undoing the Biden stuff? Who knows? It's very possible. There's not much long-term thinking or planning goes on because of this. The thinking and planning tends to go to the next election. More than half the seats back to the UK, half the seats are safe seats. Both Labour and Tory safe seats as well. Totnes, where I live, has been Tory for nearly 100 years now. And that's not unusual. Not unusual at all. Hello, something's going on there. Right. Elections are decided only in about 100, 140 marginal seats. Marginal seats, the numbers change quite a bit, but there's about 100, 140 of them. And there's really not much electioneering goes on in the safe seats. For example, in Totnes, safe Tory seat, the Tories don't bother too much at all. They certainly don't come into Totnes, and they do very little because they know that they don't have to do very little. All the energies and efforts are put into marginal seats. It's also, it's difficult to reckon how many votes are tactical, but probably about 30% of votes are tactical. People feel as though they can't vote legitimately. Wasted votes, this is all the problems with first past the post. Wasted votes, they're about around about top 60, 70% votes are wasted. That means that they don't count towards the final result. For example, in Totnes at the last election, 72% of the votes were wasted. In other words, they simply didn't count at all. Get to that figure by realizing that the person the party that comes first needs one more vote than those who come second. The second in Totnes were the Lib Dems with 28%. All those Tory votes above 28%, which was actually the total was 53%. They're above 28%, everything's wasted, and the ones below 28% are wasted. So 72% or votes in Totnes had no difference on the outcome. There's loads and loads of crazy statistics around. This was where I was going to screen share and take the spotlight off myself a bit, but I'm not going to do that because I can't. Crazy statistics, and one of the things that I was alerted to, I came across recently. Well, Shirley Williams died not that long ago, and I rated Shirley Williams. She was a great MP, Labour MP, and I think she would have made a great Prime Minister actually, but she died. And the Gang of Four, those of you who are old enough to remember, I expect probably a lot are, after the Thatcher election in '79, the Gang of Four, Shirley Williams, Bill Rogers, David Owen, Roy Jenkins, formed the SDP, Social Democratic Party. They lined up with David Steele in the Lib Dems to come up with the SDP Liberal Alliance, and they stood for the first time in the 1983 general election. And I revisited that. It's not one usually on my horizon. I'm quite tuned into statistics about these things, and I was actually really horrified. At the 1983 general election, well, we all know that Thatcher was riding on the Falklands War and got 42% of the vote and a massive overall majority. But step down a bit. The Lib Dems got 25.4% of the vote, 25.4%, and got 23 seats in Parliament. Labour got 27.6% of the vote, which is 2.2% more than the Lib Dems, and got 209 seats in Parliament. So almost the same figure as far as percentage is concerned. One gets 23 seats and the other gets 209 seats. And I was actually really rather shocked by that. And it throws up just how bad first past the post is. In the just have a slurp of water. I don't know if anybody can see me or not. But, it's not gin and tonic. In the 2015 general election, which is the general election that precipitated the start of Make Votes Matter, the yeah, this is what I was going to screen share. Let's have a think of this one. There was 25% of the votes in that general election were represented, they translated into Parliament in 1.5% of the seats. 25% of the votes, when it got to Parliament, is 1.5% of the seats. An appalling tragedy of representation. Cornwall is another slide I had for you. At the last two general elections, that is 2019, 2017, the average Tory vote in Cornwall has been 50%, 52% the last one, 48% the one before. And they end up with 100% of the seats. And to be completely cross-party about this, the same thing happens in Labour areas as well. Exactly the same thing does. I just like to focus on Cornwall because it's quite discreet, you know, it sticks out the bottom end and we all know where it is. And it would also make a good constituency seat under single transferable vote. Maybe come back to that in the questions. And then with a single transferable vote, a proportional system applying to Cornwall, then 50% of the seats in Cornwall would end up with 3 seats in Parliament, not 6 seats in Parliament. There's 6 constituency seats in Cornwall. Anyway, out of all of this lot, we end up with minority governments who have 100% of the power. For example, at the moment, we got the Tories in with 43.6% of the vote and all of the power. 2015, the Tories got considerably less, 37% of the vote, all of the power. Same thing happens with Labour in 2005, 35% of the vote and all of the power. And the last time anyone got into number 10 with more than 50% of the vote was in 1935, Stanley Baldwin, who got nearly 52% of the vote. And I was going to share here some the various numbers of the votes. At the last general election in this country, it took about 835,000 votes for one Green MP. And I've got some notes here. The Labour and the Tories needed about 40 to 50,000 votes for one MP. There's quite a bit of difference there, but when you think the Green Party is knocking up towards 1 million for one MP, the SNP do incredibly well out of it. With 26,000 votes for one MP. So the SNP do the best out of the lot, I think, apart from the DUP, as far as number of votes for one MP is concerned in Westminster. Interestingly, the SNP are fully in favour of proportional representation, which would immediately halve their MPs in Parliament. Good old SNP. Why are the SNP in favour of it? Because it's the fair, right, democratic thing to do. Also, under first past the post, parties can gain votes, lose seats, and they can lose votes and gain seats. We've had wrong winner elections in 1951, 1974, when the party with the most seats got the fewest votes. And so it goes on. There's endless supply. I've actually got my favourite one, which I'm not going to say here, but because it takes a bit of explaining. Anyway, so what difference would PR make? Well, quite simply, by definition, it solves most of the problems with FPTP that I've mentioned. There's virtually no need for a boundary commission and the possible gerrymandering that goes with that, maybe. There's no tactical voting, although you could say there's minor tactics needed with single transferable vote, perhaps. And the astonishing thing here, PR is very normal. It's used in 85% of OECD countries. And of the extended European countries, EU plus all the other bits and pieces, 40 of the 43 European countries use various forms of PR. There's only 3 that don't. One is France, which uses a 2-tier runoff system, which is arguably better than what we have. And we line up with a lot that's been in the news quite recently with Belarus, we line up with the worst voting system ever with Belarus. And you can see what Belarus are up to now. With PR, there's always a greater turnout in elections. It's actually between a 5 to 8% increase in voter turnout. I'm all surprised it's not more than that, but when you consider that there's quite a tranche of the electorate who are completely and utterly disengaged from politics, but you do get much better turnout with PR. PR systems can keep a close constituency link, allowing people to vote for candidates and not just parties, if that's what you want. I mean, I'm not sold on that, the close constituency link between MPs myself. I don't go with that one, but a lot of people seem to be wedded to it. PR is already used in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and London, as we've just seen last week, or was it the week before? With PR, there are always more female MPs in their main legislative body. All countries with PR have more than 40% in their legislative chambers. There are better outcomes. The better outcomes include more positive actions on climate change. And in Germany, actually, but maybe come back to that. Maybe if it looks like there's a correlation, there's just less societal polarization and inequality. And there's lots and lots of stats about sort of happier societies, more contented societies with PR. How will win PR? Well, again, I'm talking from a Make Votes Matter perspective here. And the Make Votes Matter focus is on 3 areas. There's the MVM Alliance, which is alliance of everybody, political parties, public figures, organisations, trade unions, and local groups. I started Totnes local group 3.5 years ago when I semi-retired. So there's quarterly alliance meetings. I've been up to the House of Commons for certainly 3 of them before lockdown. The second strand of the Make Votes Matter focus is the Labour Party, which is really, really interesting, and it's getting more and more interesting at the moment. About 3/4 of the Labour Party members want PR. That's YouGov polling. By the way, if anybody wants me to confirm statistics and sources of them, please let me know afterwards. I can't see a chat box, of course. The Make Votes Matter have been the focus on the CLPs, the constituency Labour parties, and that is being incredibly rewarding. The CLPs, there's about 650 actually in the country, of course, but there's about 215 now have come on board with a pro-PR motion to the National Policy Forum. And the Labour Party is really the key to all this lot. If the Labour Party come on board with PR, the whole house of cards start to fall in, especially if the Labour Party are interested in a progressive alliance. The unions are slowly coming on board. In fact, very recently, ASLEF came on board with pro-PR. Momentum, the left wing of the Labour Party, they are pro-PR. And the whole of the Labour Party are slowly moving towards adopting PR. And the hope is that in this September, in the Labour Party conference, there will be a manifesto pledge for PR. Keir Starmer is known to be on board. He said, quote, "We need electoral reform." So the Labour Party is, and it's all gaining momentum. Sorry, there's no pun there. It's all gaining momentum very rapidly, actually, in the Labour Party. And I've got a YouTube clip with Phil Morehouse, who's a political commentator, which I might forward to you, Tim, afterwards, which just came out yesterday. Very interesting about the progress of the Labour Party towards pro-PR. The third strand of the Make Votes Matter Alliance is the grassroots. That's the likes of me, of Totnes Group and the local groups, about taking action, building support, raising awareness, doing talks to people like yourself. Oh yes, the Good Systems Agreement. Because a lot of people say, well, what sort of PR? You know, what's it all about? And Make Votes Matter don't get drawn on that. I can talk about them if you want to. I tend not to like to get drawn on it, but it's about the principle of proportionality. And Make Votes Matter, if you go on the MVM website, there is a good systems agreement about what compromises, what is meant by a PR voting system, a good systems agreement. And the Make Votes Matter policy is to use a citizens' assembly to decide what to do, where to go. You don't have to take a voting system off the shelf. You can actually hybridize. You can do what you like, actually. We're a sovereign country. We can do what we like. We were a sovereign country before we left the EU, let me say that as well. The best thing with sorting out voting systems is don't leave it to politicians. Keep it away from politicians' hands for very obvious reasons indeed. So how can you get involved? Well, I've left with Tim a few days ago a sign-up sheet, in inverted commas, which to sign up to support Make Votes Matter and join Make Votes Matter. It doesn't cost anything. It'd be great if you could donate something to the cause. That'd be terrific. Take part in a mass action day. Join your local group. There is actually a local group in Plymouth, which is it's got a straightforward email address, which is mvmplymouth@gmail.com. It's John. He used to be part of our group. He lives in Plymouth, and he started a group there. So you could join Make Votes Matter Plymouth. Check out the website. Write to your MP, and encourage others to do. Make a noise about it. Write to your MP. I mean, in Plymouth, you've got one red one, one blue one, and if they come back not in favour of PR and say blah, 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 scaremongering, obfuscating rubbish, which is what they usually do, go to Make Votes Matter myth-busting page and get back to them and take them up on it. Don't let them get away with rubbish. I mean, our MP here, until we trained him a bit, he used to come back with all the same old rubbish over and over again. And let's just go to that one. His main one was the 2011 referendum, which was about voting reform. It wasn't about proportional representation. It was about voting reform to the alternative vote, to AV. And they come back to that one and say, well, we had the result was terrific in favour of first past the post. Well, in relation to FPT, it was. At that referendum, again, which had nothing at all to do with proportional representation, because the alternative vote is a majoritarian system, very, very similar to first past the post, actually. And 42% turnout, just remembering these, 28% voted in favour of keeping first past the post, and 14% voted to change to AV. So in other words, it was 2-1 in favour of keeping first past the post. Now then, people like me, I didn't vote because I know that changing to AV would have been disastrous, and I wasn't voting to keep first past the post. So I know a lot of people who are pro-PR who simply didn't vote. The referendum excluded them, and they use that endlessly, that referendum, and it's just so illegitimate when you're talking about proportional representation. So raise awareness. I talk about our corrupt voting system, as I like to call it, at every opportunity. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I think I sent a local paper report to Tim on this one. I think I remember it. And I've been speaking to schools, not recently, but around in the South Hams. Not recently, of course, because of lockdown. But I did a Zoom call with my old school in London, Emmanuel School in London, which is now terribly posh and expensive. It wasn't when I was there. It was a state grammar. I certainly wouldn't have gone there if it was posh and expensive, because I'm neither of those. But I sort of, as an old boy, I got in and I spoke to the short stories. I spoke to 22 of the year 12 students. I tend to find going to schools as a bit of an open door, because teachers tend to be sort of left of political spectrum, I think, and they're quite up for it. So this was the year 12 politics students. They'd just done their modules about voting reform and referendums, actually, they'd done. Sorry, about political systems and voting systems and referendums. So I came in on the back of that. and right at the beginning, before I'd given my talk, I did a straw poll about how many of you 22 think that we should change to PR, how many think that we should stay with the status quo of first past the post, and how many are undecided. And I was actually quite shocked. 18 of the 22 were, we need to change to PR, 1 to stay with first past the post, and 3 undecided. I didn't take a straw poll at the end either because I thought I didn't need to, but I was really quite shocked and so pleased that they'd come to this decision by looking at, and these are, you know, fairly intelligent kids, by looking at the statistics and the evidence and all the rest of it. And by talking to people and saying, I know I could become a PR bore because I go on and on about it. Anyway, I think I'm coming to the end. I've done about 25 minutes, half an hour, and have some questions. So if you want the voting system to change, if you do, we all need to take action, write to MPs. I write to any MPs. I write my MP in when I write to other MPs, and make a lot of noise and join your local group. We do quite a few. The next action day, Make Votes Matter Action Day, is the 17th of July. We haven't planned what we're going to do, but we were planning that. And we've done quite a few things recently in April, last December, last August. Again, I was going to screen share some of those with you, but can't do that. Well, I hope you're still listening to me because I have no idea. Can something? Hello? Hello?
Hi, thank you so much. I don't know if people want to unmute
Hello?
themselves so we can say thank you to Laurie. Thank you, Laurie.
Did you actually hear all that?
Yes, we heard you.
Yes.
We didn't see you though, so I don't know if you are able to change your video settings. But, hey ho. So everybody, the chat is open. So I don't think Laurie is able to see the questions, so I'll pass them on to him. Laurie, do you know Luke Pollard, who is Plymouth's local MP? Do you know what his view is on PR?
He's your Labour MP, isn't he?
Warm.
Yeah.
Labour MP. No, I don't. I don't know his position. If you go on the Make Votes website, you'll find an interactive map or country with constituencies and who has which of the CLPs, Labour parties, are pro PR. You'll be able to do that quite easily. I mean, write to him as well. I would absolutely write to him. All of you to him if you want to. Load those in his, you are in his constituency, and you need to have your address and postcode so he knows you're a constituent. But write to him, push it with him. Yes, do. And I don't know personally what his view is. Don't know.
Thank you. And can you just clarify what 3 groups there are to address in the PR? There was the Alliance and Labour.
Sorry.
And what was the third strand?
So I didn't hear the question.
What was the you said there were 3 groups to address in the fight for PR: Alliance, Labour, and we weren't too sure of the third strand.
No, okay. The it's not. Make Votes Matter is sort of divided, if you like, but it's all with the same focus of PR for the House of Commons. But there's 3 strands to Make Votes Matter. One is the Alliance, which is the heavyweight lot, really, the political parties, public figures, organisations, trade unions. It also includes local groups as well. So it's everybody in together, the MBN Alliance. Then the other strand, the second strand, is the Labour Party, and working on the Labour Party. I did phone banking for Make Votes Matter in contacting Labour Party CLPs. So we had contact details for them, and the CLPs are falling over themselves actually to get pro-PR motions to the National Policy Forum. So the Labour Party is a particular strand of Make Votes Matter, which is where the concentration goes. And the third one is grassroots, which is me, and local groups. And there's Totnes local group. You've got a Plymouth local group. There's a Cornwall local group as well, down beyond you. So sorry, I didn't make that clear. I went off into the Labour Party quite a lot because the Labour Party are the really the key, absolutely the key, and the focus of Make Verse Matters' attention. Hope that makes that a bit clearer. Thank you.
It really does, thank you. And Ushi asks, why do you call the FPTP system primitive? Did you catch that, Laurie?
I didn't know. Say again.
So you referred to the FPTP system as primitive, and Ushi was wondering, on behalf of all of us, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. It's primitive in the sense that it is hugely simplistic, and is not, and goes back. We first used first past the post as we use it today in 1888. It came into being in 1884 or 5 and was first used in 1888. So it's a Victorian two-party voting system, which sort of does okay really when you've just got, it's a binary vote, a two-party vote, or a two-thing vote. It sort of works fairly well in the United States, other than the Electoral College, and it squeezes out third parties. But I mean, it's primitive in the sense that it's Victorian. It hasn't evolved. The Labour Party came into being, obviously, in 1900, after first past the post, and it hasn't evolved. The electorate have become more sophisticated in terms of parties, and we have obviously a multi-party system, and we have a primitive voting system which simply doesn't accommodate a more sophisticated electorate. I say it's primitive. Also, I mean, people say that voting in PR voting is going to be complicated. Well, no, actually, the thing is that first past the post is ridiculously simple. I actually, sorry, I'm waffling on a bit here. I registered for a postal vote years and years and years ago, because I can't be bothered to. I think I should vote. I don't know why I vote, because my vote for the last 45 years has never ever been counted. And the anticlimactic walk to the polling station to put a cross in one box, I just don't want to do it. I'm just not interested. It's primitive in all those senses, and probably more if I could stop and think about it. I hope that helps with the word primitive. I like to use it as primitive, dysfunctional, and dangerous, because it grabs people's attention. They think, oh, because they're quite harsh words, and let's have a word. Let's investigate that. And what is that about? That's primitive for you. Over to you.
Thank you. Mike Flood says that anti-PR people often point to Israel as showing that PR is dysfunctional and gives minority groups too much power or say. Can you pass comments on this, please?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Israel. I mean, you to judge PR by Israel or Italy is not the thing to do. Israel, as I've done more of an interesting investigation into Italy myself, but I think again, I'm not on too sound here, if Israel had first past the post, there will be Netanyahu and Likud in as an extreme right-wing party, unmitigated by anybody else at all. I think the problems between Israel and Gaza, Palestine are hugely complicated, and I would consider that under first past the post it will be more extreme on the Israel side. There will be more right wing and not mitigated, because the point is, isn't it, in Israel, I guess some of you know more about this than I do, trying to find a coalition of Likud and somebody else is difficult, which is why they carry on and on trying to find coalitions and don't do it, because The second party is the Blue Party with Gantz, and they're left-wingish and they don't want to pal up together. I'm floundering a bit here, I must admit, and I need to do some research. I can talk more about Italy actually, which is has a similar sort of quality, but quite different, actually, quite different but similar. That's all I can say on that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Usha's a little bit confused because she doesn't really understand how it comes to the number of wasted votes. For example, if the person voted in gets 30% and the next one gets 15%, she would call that 70% because 30% are represented.
Okay, the point is with, I used, let me come back to Totnes as an example, and wasted votes are votes that make no, in terms of a wasted vote, which makes no difference at all to the outcome of the election, of the vote. In Totnes, go back to Totnes again, and it's the same, you can pick up whichever constituency you like here. Our Tory MP got 53% of the vote, and the second person was Sarah Wollaston here, the Lib Dem, got 28% of the vote. And then there was a Labour person and also another person, a 5G person. The Greens stood down in Totnes to say to the Greens said to their people, give your vote to the Lib Dems. But basically the opposition was split. Lib Dems, Labour was split. So Anthony Mangnall got 53% of the vote. Sarah Wollaston 28% of the vote. Now then, all that the Conservatives need to do to win this constituency is to get one more vote than the person who came second. So above 28%, which Sarah Wollaston got, the 25% of Tory votes above that were not needed for the result of the vote in Totnes. So they are effectively wasted. They weren't needed for the end result. So one vote more than 28% means that effectively 72% of votes don't count towards the election result. I think it's a fairly straightforward statistical definition. I appreciate it might be, it could be viewed in other ways, but you know, that's what I mean by wasted votes, not counting towards the outcome of the election.
Yeah. It looks like people understood that but may not agree. So Rebecca Murphy, thanks you for an interesting talk, as we all do, and says one of the arguments she's heard against PR is that it gives power to nationalist and extremist parties. Her instinct is that this would be outweighed by the benefits of more positive small parties being given a voice, but wonders what your view is on this.
Sorry, I say the question is about it gives undue representation to minority extremist parties. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she that it gives power to nationalist and extremist parties, but she thinks that would be outweighed by the benefits to more positive small parties.
I think it would be massively outweighed myself. Yes, in the European Parliament, we had a British National Party MP, was it? And in local council elections, we had some nationalist councillors over in the East, particularly. But I mean, this the evidence is all not. It's all against this, actually. The best thing that you can do with extremist views is to, yeah, and okay, if it's a National Defence League or an English First or whatever it is, member of Parliament crops up, the problem is what? Most of the major parties in PR systems, they always come out before the election and say they will not form a coalition with X party or Y party, an extremist party. And in PR systems, there is always a threshold of votes. It's normally between 3 to 5% that a party needs to get of the vote to actually start to qualify for an MP in Parliament. I prefer the lower threshold myself. And the I think in the 2015 election, we got the UKIP party, which had a huge number of votes for, what was it, 1 MP. And that came back to bite at the the 2016 referendum, because they were given no representation. Now then, whatever you think about the UKIP, they got a load of votes and they should have had representation in Parliament. They're not, on the right wing of the party, but hey, what have we got at the moment? We've got, in my opinion, we've got a right wing, authoritarian, is it extreme right wing government with a minority of the vote, 43.6% of the vote. That's what we've got at the moment with first past the post. I really, I mean, the whole idea, the first past the post, for example, was actually the causative factor of apartheid in South Africa. If you look at that history there, first past the post actually generates extremism, and it will generate, it enables, I mean, Lukashenko in Belarus with first past the post. You look at what's happening there. You don't have to go too far to realize that actually first past the post encourages extremists. Okay, yep. I mean, people go back to the war and Hitler was elected under a proportional system. Yes, that's true. It's a proportional system. It was a certain sort of party list system which isn't used anymore. The fact is that he would have come to power much more quickly under a majoritarian system, first past the post. That is very clear. And the killing factor is that after the war, the Brits, us, we were responsible for the quite majorly responsible for the rebuild of Western Germany after the war. And what did we do in 1946? We introduced a very proportional additional member system in order to make sure that the country will be stable after the war. And of course, they still have a system, and they are, by all accounts, doing very well, strength to strength. I mean, I think all the evidence, the best thing for extremist parties, get a few MPs in Parliament under a proportional system, and that is where you can deal with them. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, I think, as
I think
We may have lost Laurie.
have we lost Laurie?
Yes. We have him still there, but we have lost his voice.
Welcome back, Laurie. And yeah, I think if you could answer the question from Dudley, and then after that, we do have a few more that had been written.
yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Can you see me? I can actually see you now.
No, we still can't
can
see you,
me,
sadly.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I can see you. I
We
wish
can
I
hear
knew
you,
what
though.
I was doing. Okay, you can hear me. Different sorts of PR. Okay. Well, there's three basic sorts of PR. Like I said in my talk, the whole decision needs to be given to a citizens' assembly to deal with and come up with results. Citizens' assembly are great. I don't know if any of you followed the abortion citizens' assembly in Ireland a couple of years ago. It was amazingly interesting. They do good work, citizens' assemblies. And we don't have to take one off the shelf. We can actually do what we want to do. There are three basic forms. One is a party list system. I mean, I could go into lots of detail about party list systems and all the others, how they work. Let's have a bit of an overview. The party list system would typically be sort of, assuming you're working on 650 MPs still, it'll be sort of 26 large constituencies with 25 MPs in each one, say, something like that. You'd go to the polling station, you'd vote for a party. Within each of those large constituencies, there'd be 25 MPs going to Parliament, and there will be a portion on a list drawn up by the parties. It could be a closed list or an open list. So if in a large constituency of 25 MPs, there was 20% voted something or other, there will be 5 MPs go to Parliament, and so on. That's a party list system. And I think one of your speakers there sounded as though she was from Holland. That is the system in Holland and in Denmark. And actually, party list is the main system used in Europe. It's also used in Israel, as it happens. Then the next one is single transferable vote, which is you go to the polling station and you have your candidates there, probably quite a long list perhaps, and you rank them in order from your favourite down to your least favourite. And I mean, I in part of what I was going to do with my screen sharing, I mean, Cornwall would make a really good STV, single transferable vote constituency, because there's 6 MPs go to Parliament from Cornwall. And, you know, if 50% vote Tory, there's 3 Tory MPs. And I mean, on the voting that might happen under in a PR system, there will possibly be 2 Lib Dems and 1 Labour from Cornwall, possibly even 3 Tories, 1 Lib Dem, 1 Labour, 1 Green. You know, who knows? Because the voting patterns will change under PR. So there will be a number of, you know, a substantially smaller number of constituencies, much larger constituencies, containing about 5 or 6 MPs going to Parliament. The additional member system, which is used in Germany, is used in New Zealand, where it's called the mixed member proportional system. Single transferable vote, by the way, has an element of not being terribly proportional because of the few number of MPs that go to Parliament. The additional member system, I mean, typically, could be typical. There will be 450 constituencies in the country, in other words, substantially reduced from where they are now, 450-ish. And so any constituency in the country will be about 50% larger to take account of that. And in that constituency, there will be an MP elected just like now with first past the post voting. But that then is topped up with another 200 MPs, 450 plus 200 makes 650. So at an additional member system vote, you have a vote for the person in your constituency, and then you also have another vote, which is your party system, your party vote. So if you were, you know, Lib Dem voter, you would go to the poll. You might vote Lib Dem for the constituency MP, and then on your party list you might vote Lib Dem again, which would be typical, but they need not be the same. And then the other 200 top-up MPs would be drawn from that party list vote to balance the proportionality of the whole of the voting, because obviously in a strong Tory or a Labour seat, your non-Tory or Labour vote wouldn't be counted, so it would be counted in the party list. That's what New Zealand has. New Zealand got away from first past the post voting in '94 and haven't looked back. They've had a couple of referendums since to say, are they okay with it? And yes, the New Zealand people are okay with it, and they've got a wonderful prime minister called Jacinda Ardern, who's doing great things. I'm going off the topic now. They're the 3 basic PR systems. And again, it's not for MVM to decide, and certainly not for me to decide, and keep it away from politicians to decide. That's my answer to that one.
Thank you. Mary asks whether you could explain the different PR systems.
Same one.
Was that one?
Sorry, say that again. I've just explained.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit confused. Does she want? So can not to ask for party lists, but MPs accountable to the CLP. Sorry, there's sorry, within the chat, there's some conversations within each other, and I can't really tell which. I haven't really followed which is which. Is it so? Stephen B has asked: is it possible to get PR at council level, and is it Parliament that gets to decide?
Yes, very good question, because we had our county council elections, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? And yes, it is possible, and I think it's very necessary that we have PR systems at county council and district council level. Actually, very, very important. I think at the last election in the last county council election, I don't know what this one was. There was about 42% in Devon. I'm thinking of Devon. 42% of the vote was Conservative, and they got 70%. Is something like that. I might be a little bit wrong, but certainly 70% of the seats in Exeter, in the county council in Exeter. But yes, the Make Votes Matter is all about PR for the House of Commons. And yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's different devolved powers, of course, to Wales and to Scotland, and we've been seeing how they've been working, in fact, very well. And it would then be up to Westminster to devolve that power to county councils. What county councils and district councils have to do comes from Westminster. They get told what to do. So first change Westminster, then change the county councils and the district councils. Yes, and it'd be a good thing to do.
Thank you. Martin?
I was just going to say, just related to that, that in the press after the last elections, they were saying that Johnson wanted to scrap the proportional representation for regional mayors because it hadn't produced enough Tories. Do you know anything about that?
Well, yes, I think you said it. I mean, yeah, I mean, they want to scrap first past the post for everything, don't they? Because it doesn't do the Tories very good. They want to scrap the London mayor was elected with what's called supplementary, which is not PR. It's the first post, and they wanted to change the supplementary vote for the London mayor to first past the post because it would give the Tories a better chance. As it happened this time, the Tory wouldn't have got in, but it gives the Tories a better chance because on the first vote, supplementary vote means you have two votes, one for your first choice and one for your second choice. And of course, the Tories tend not to get second choice supplementary votes. And so they want to change it for the London mayor because there will be a much greater chance of the mayor being a Tory mayor elected. Yes, it's as straightforward as that. Actually, what else are they trying to change? Other things as well.
Do you think they will?
I mean, it's really interesting to see what's happening in. Well, this is the drag about our voting system, isn't it? Where they've got an 83, or is it now an 85 seat majority because of anyway, you've got a huge majority, and Parliament is sovereign. Parliament can actually, because of our lack of a codified constitution, Parliament can do what it likes, and if they want to, they can do whatever they like. They can scrap the Supreme Court. They can change the voting system, if they want to. They can scrap the BBC. There's a possibility of that. Well, not scrap the BBC, but put some handcuffs on the BBC. And I mean, when I said the voting system is dangerous, this is precisely what's going on. I look upon what's going on at the moment with a big shift to the right and the purging of the Tory party of any sort of moderates or lefties as being really, really dangerous. And when they start fiddling around with the judiciary and scrapping the Supreme Court, we must get really, really, really worried. It's about a right-wing authoritarian government trying to tighten things up in their favour. Look at Italy. So there's complications in Italy, but the League Party in the north of Italy, a right-wing party. I don't know if you know anything about Italy, but it's complicated, and there's lots of centrist parties. That's the part of the problem. PR in Italy is one of the symptoms of the problem. It's not the cause of the problem. And the League Party, the right-wing lot, went to the Italian Constitutional Court a year last January to try and change to, this is away from PR, tried to change to first past the post for the very same reason that they can do what's happening in this country. the Constitutional Court in Italy came back and said, no, you can't do it. Quote, well, I can't quote the Italian, but it's too manipulative, is what they said. And yes, it absolutely is. And it's what's happening now in this country, and it worries me hugely.
Thank you. Have we got any other questions? Because it seems like I think the ones that were written in the chat have been covered, unless I'm wrong.
I heard something about someone wanting to hear more about South Africa. I could say more about that if is wanted.
Yep, yep. If you could elaborate on your argument about how
Yeah, okay.
FTFP
Extremists. Yeah. FPTP, first past the post. Yeah, okay. So South Africa became a republic, was it in 1910? Shed its shackles from our country, and one of the problems of the British legacy around the world is first past the post. Australia got away from it in 1918. New Zealand 25 years ago. South Africa 25 years ago or so. There's a huge clamour in India and Canada to get away from first past the post, but it's very difficult to move away from, as we're finding in this country. Back to South Africa. So first past the post system they had as a legacy from us. And there's after the war, national party. I mean, there's always been black-white tensions in South Africa, but after the war, the national party, the white national party, under first past the post, got an overall majority, a big overall majority, with a minority of the vote, and they're extreme right wing, and they formulated and put into place apartheid. Okay, yes, there were always black-white divisions, and those of you who know about apartheid, it was complete segregation, different shops, different toilets, different everything, different transport systems for blacks and whites, and all the huge tensions. I mean, I was very aware during the 70s and 80s as I was becoming aware of these things about what was going on in South Africa. Hugely problematical townships, killings, necklacing, hugely difficult, and all because it wouldn't have happened without first past the post. And apartheid carried on for 46 years to 1994. So we're now coming to post-Mandela, Mandela and post-Mandela. And in the new South Africa emerging after white minority rule, they changed the constitution and they introduced a very proportional party list system so that it couldn't happen again. And that's what they've got to this day. It's not to say that, I mean, you don't have 46 years of apartheid with all its so problem understatement. Things on Africa now to what we used. Yes, it's going to take a generation or more to play out all those tensions.
I think Laurie is coming in and out. Mike?
Can I speak?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say I found Laurie's presentation fantastic and very, very clear. My biggest concern about PR is that it seems to people like myself as much more complicated. And wouldn't it be better if the movement was actually promoting one of the three options so that it was just making a very clear statement, we want party lists or STV or additional members, and these are the reasons, rather than not deliberately not having a view on which is the best system to have, because this makes it much more complicated.
I guess the issue is that if you do that, you know, it'll be like on the left side of politics, you'll end up with three different Make Votes Matter campaigns for their different ones. And this way they're sort of pushing it down the road till we can all agree there'll be a convention and they will decide.
I just fear it'll lead to divide and rule. That's my concern.
Why do you think it will lead to divide and rule?
Because people they'll say, you know, they'll pick all the worst bits of all the different systems. I just think if even, I mean, presumably Laurie thinks that any one of the three types of PR is better than what we have at the moment, is an improvement. So wouldn't it be better to just go for one of them rather than having the confusion about three? It's like riding three horses. That's how it comes across to me.
I think to me it comes more across like we want to change in that direction, but you know, even if you would back one of the systems, you know, the details need to be elaborated. So because the details need to be elaborated, you know, you should elaborate all the details together, because otherwise you have a small private group like Make Votes Matter try to oppose their opinion on the rest of the country.
That's quite right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Laurie's
Can you
back.
hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? No, I said we're back. Yeah. Okay. Divide and rule. And so I missed out on in the question there. Yeah. Okay. I think the person asking the question was saying we should come down, or was hoping we would come down to on a specific voting system. But again, I really don't think that's the way forward, because in my experience, you can get really everyone's got their favorite voting system or what's best. I mean, I've got my favorite voting system. I won't actually divulge what it is. But I mean, Make Votes Matter, and I think it's absolutely right that this goes to a citizens' assembly, to a what you might call an impartial body to decide on how to do it. And I might not get what I want, and individuals in Make Votes Matter or individuals in the Labour Party or the Lib Dems or the Green might not get what they want, but somebody has to decide. And to start, I think, to sort of squabble over what is the best system is not the approach. The approach is that we need a proportional system, and we need an independent body to decide on what that system is.
But Laurie,
In my humble opinion.
Laurie, you know so much about this, and it's very helpful for ordinary people to look at somebody, whether it's David Attenborough or somebody, you know, that has great respect, and say, this is what they believe, and I'll go along with that because I trust that person. I think that's a very strong thing. And I think there is a danger of divide and rule if everybody's, well, lots of people are saying pro PR, but then there's a confusion about which is the best system. So I would prefer to have a system where you clearly know what you're talking about, say, I prefer this system for these reasons. And then I think that's a much clearer message to put across to the public, which will be very confused.
Well, with a great deal of respect, I don't think it is a clear message to put to the public. It becomes more of a confusing message to put to the public, in my opinion, where you've got, you know, a number of different systems which aren't actually easy to explain, terribly easy to explain. Whereas the principle of Make Votes Matter is that seats should match votes. Sorry, votes should match seats. So 10% of votes, 10% of seats. 25% of votes, 25% of seats. That's quite an easy, you know, concept to put over to people. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, that's where I am. Thank you for saying that. I sound so not. I know a lot about it. I've had 40 years of trying to mug up on all this stuff, and I continually sort of try and understand more and more and more. But yeah, I mean, I'm very clear that I think it should be in the hands of an independent body to come up with what needs to be done, and individuals will be disappointed, and I might be disappointed in what Citizens Assembly comes up with, but boy, I'd have to lump it. And I mean, the Citizens Assembly could do what they like, and it would have to be sort of have to have weight behind it, and the politicians would have to say that they're going to accept it for it to make any sense. I think to put all these complicated systems in front of people is very difficult indeed.
I agree. That's why I made my point.
Could I ask a question on behalf of Mary? It's a very good question. Could you say something about how citizens' assemblies are chosen, please? How it works?
Yeah, by sortage, simply by random. A bit way that pollsters produce people. I don't know if any of you followed the, like I said, I alluded to the abortion debate in Ireland, Southern Ireland era, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when it was such a political issue and so difficult. And they had citizens' assembly. I think it was 99 people. You always want an odd number in case of draws, you know. And it was, I think it's on. You can find it on YouTube still. I mean, maybe I could find it and send it to you for you to send on. And it was a whole thing about it. And the citizens' assemblies have worked admirably around the world, and often 100 people. I mean, for a PR citizens' assembly in this country, maybe you need more. Okay, there's sortage. In other words, it's randomized for demographics and age across the population. They obviously have to agree to do it, and they are, depending on what the subject is, they are brought together for long weekends at various venues, and they are briefed about the subject. I mean, in this case, let's go back to abortion. They were briefed about the medical issues, the scientific issues, the moral issues, in an impartial way, not just given the facts, basically. And in due course, they had a vote and they came to a conclusion. This is a citizens' assembly. I probably think it went on for half a dozen weekends over a couple of months.
Laurie,
Hello.
Laurie, there's a film just come out about 2 weeks ago on the Citizens' Assembly in Birmingham for the Climate Assembly, and it is absolutely fabulous. And I would recommend everybody to listen to it. And Susan, who's there as well, was
recommend it.
It's an absolutely fabulous film about what happened at the Citizens' Assembly, and it's
The People versus Climate Change.
Thank you.
It's available on
Yes,
BBC iPlayer for a year, and it's a really good example of
and, I mean, it's sort of grassroots democracy in action, actually, people making decisions. You have to take these decisions. I mean, in Ireland, I know sorry, you're right. There's that one on the Citizens' Assembly on. Hasn't there been another one as well? I thought there was another one on climate, the climate crisis, climate emergency. But do look at them on YouTube, and you just come away totally impressed. People take this very seriously. The participants do. They engage with it extremely well, and they come up with really good decisions at the end of it. It's fantastic. You know?
One of the problems, Laurie, with the Citizens' Assembly for the Climate Assembly was that when it came out, I mean, somebody's mentioned Extinction Rebellion. It's their third demand to have Citizens' Assembly, but the climate extinction people rejected the Citizens' Assembly, which had been organized because it was organized by half a dozen parliamentary committees. So there's a danger that people will reject the outcomes because of the way the Citizens' Assembly is set up.
Okay. I suppose I'm not here to pass judgment on Citizens' Assembly.
By the way, I don't support Extinction Rebellion.
I'm not going to offer support or otherwise for Extinction Rebellion. I mean, I'm here to talk about Make Votes Matter and proportional representation, not Extinction Rebellion, or not whether people accept Citizens' Assembly's results or not. But I think you and the other speaker have said how impressed you were with the conduct of the Citizens' Assembly that you've listened to. Do find the Ireland one about abortion you can find it on YouTube. It's probably fairly easy to search for. And one is I was just impressed by it completely. And I'm not sure the Ireland was the Ireland one was advisory or otherwise. I'm not quite sure, but the government accepted it, and in a very, obviously abortion in Ireland, extremely emotive, very difficult politically. Take the politics out of it, give it to a citizens' assembly, and people generally accepted it. Yep, the pro-abortionists weren't terribly happy, but they were probably less happy than if they got that decision politically. We've got to have ways and means of doing these things, and citizens' assemblies seem to do a very good job.
That's lovely, thank you. Well, I think we've been here for about an hour and a half now without a break. So unless anybody's got final questions, I think, which it seems not. So I think, again, if we can thank you so much, Laurie.
Okay.
This month we are going to be giving donations to MBM. So I think we'll probably end up putting a link either in email or our Facebook page. Is that right, Tim?
Yes, on to both, yes.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, so thank you for attending, everybody. Thanks for your input, and thank you again, Laurie.